What's up, everyone? This is Bacon here, and today we are looking at Ferael, aka Old Man with a Bow. He is not the first unit in this game with a bow. Leica and Gwyneth would like to have a word with him, and he's definitely not the most attractive one, but he is looking pretty good. And looking at some of his stat changes compared to the original classic game, he's received some pretty big buffs compared to the old one. So I'm excited to get into that. But before we jump into his stat changes and his abilities, I want to look at how you can summon him. So per usual, you will summon him in the Destiny summons. This is how they basically are doing every new character in the game. Now, you might be wondering about the dimensional summons. They are still available. They're just down here. And both will expire in about 13 days. Dimensional will have a little bit more time. You can see down here has about 17 more hours. And then Ferael has 13 days and 5 hours left. You can see as the typical extra summons as you kind of progress up here. And then at 240, you get the 15, you get the copy of him, and then you get the gear at 480. Honestly, for those of you who are looking to, decide between summoning for him or not, like every character that is going into here that is a kind of normal faction character, they will eventually be released into the game. And so there are one of three things you could do. One, you could just not summon for him, and I would say this is probably the best option if you are still trying to summon for some spirits, if you're still trying to get up to the 420 mark for the gear, or if you're just kind of wanting to get as many of these as possible because of how rare they are and how hard to find they are. Now, another option that you can do, if we go back to Ferael, is you can just get one copy of him, summon until you get the one copy. That way you have him, you can play with him a little bit, see how he is as a single cost. He does have some pretty good debuffing, which is really nice, but you're not going to see his full capacity without building him out. And so you can get an idea of how he works. He could be used in some areas, but having one copy of him is not going to be game changing at this point. I think like most characters, you have to build him out some to kind of get some good usage out of him. Or the third option is to just kind of say, screw it to the dimensionals, and I'm just going to summon Ferael if you really want him. Now, obviously, you are kind of having a trade-off here. You are using your Destiny Summon Scrolls for a unit that will eventually be in the normal draw at the Noble Tavern. Eventually, you could put him on a wish list. It'll probably be a while. Warwick just got added like a day or two ago, I think, when he came out. And so you can wait that long, which will be, looks like around a month is my guess. I'm sure there's specific dates, but I don't know those off the top of my head. And so it kind of depends on your patience level. I personally have no idea what I'm going to do yet. I'm going to kind of mess with him a little bit and see how others are using him, see where he's thriving. I think for a Graveborn, he'd pair really well with Shamir and a few other units in the tower. I think he is, a good unit that will last a long time, especially with these buffs. I'm telling you, these buffs are kind of nutty. I'm really excited to get into them, but that's my thought on him. I think if you are wanting to try him out sooner than later, you're not going to necessarily regret pulling for him, but you might regret not getting more of these if these are what you want. I don't know if I want to get more of these or not, or if I just want to kind of save my Destiny summons for another unit. I'm still convinced, and I have no reason to think this, that there will be Celestials or Hypogenes eventually in Destiny summons. And so I kind of want to save in case that happens. But, maybe I'll just end up saving them forever until the next dimensional unit comes out, and I'll have them then. I don't know. But that's just my 2 cents. So let's go ahead and jump into his abilities. All right, so looking at his kits, let's first, point out the obvious. He's a Graveborn agility unit. He is a ranger unit. That makes sense. These really don't mean hardly anything in Companions because there's no tower where you can invest certain things depending on the class. But he's a ranger, and then he has continuous damage. He does a lot of AoE. He has a haunting kind of ability that just does damage over time. And so that's what he does. He's also kind of debuffs as well. So I'd throw that into his kind of description. But if we could jump into his ultimate skill, Nether Blaze fires a demonic arrow that hits all enemies on the battlefield, causing them to suffer 400% damage. Now, 400% is key here because in Classic, it's 170%. It has gone up 230% for this skill alone, for his ultimate. So this has been cranked up. They just took the damage multiplier and they're like, we're going to crank the crap out of this. So that's the first thing that really surprised me. A lot of the changes I've seen with other units have been like 20% higher, 30%. I have not seen one this high of an increase so far. So that's huge. All enemies that are haunted by an evil spirit receive an additional 25% damage per spirit. And then spirits' attack speeds are increased for 6 seconds. And then the 400% goes up to 420 at level 3. The next skill we want to look at is Terrorize. So terrifies and stuns 3 heroes. So originally this was only 2. It got buffed to 3 heroes for 2.5 seconds. Originally it was only 2 seconds. And summons the evil spirit, which haunts them for 10 seconds. And then at level 2, it goes up to 4 units. In the classic version, it's only 3. And then at level 3, enemies are stunned for 3 seconds. Now, obviously, this is huge. It just means he does more AoE damage. He does more damage to other people or other units. And so I think with here, the enemy stunned for 3 seconds, difference, not a huge deal. But that level 2, increasing it from 3 to 4 is obviously a big target that you'll want to reach when kind of building him out. All right, so his next ability is a Cursed Arrow. Fires a Cursed Arrow at an enemy, dealing 250 damage. And as you may have guessed, this has been increased as well. Originally, it was at 140. Now it is at 250 base. Then the Cursed Arrow causes an enemy spirit to haunt enemies for 10 seconds. Any spirits which are summoned due to one of Ferael's skill will attack their targets once every 3 seconds. And then the damage is increased to 80 in the base game or classic version. It also goes up 30% more, but obviously not 280. Any spirits which are summoned by skill deduct 15 other targets' energy each time they attack. Then any spirits which are summoned by skill have a chance to interrupt their enemy's attacks. This is all the same, but basically the percentage here and here is what the big change is for this one. All right, and the last ability we're going to look at is Corrupted Spirit. This is passive. Summons an evil spirit from a fallen hero's corpse that then haunts an enemy for 10 seconds. And then this is all the same. Nothing's changed here from the classic version. So any spirits which are summoned due to one of Ferael's skills and remains on the battlefield for 3 seconds. Any spirits which are summoned due to one of Ferael's skills will remain on the battlefield for 5 seconds. And so this is, his passive is nice to have, I guess, if your units are dying. This happens, it triggers it 10 seconds. It's not necessarily, I would say, game-changing, but it is a nice thing to have if, some of your units are dying. So keep that in mind. So now looking at his signature item, this is pretty much the same as it was in classic version. So this number is the same, this is the same, this is the same, the percentages. But let's go ahead and read them. So normal attacks will cause an additional evil spirit to haunt the enemy target if a critical strike occurs. At 10, it reduces all enemies' attack ratings by 3% and vitality by 12, which is kind of like healing, ability to heal. For every spirit that is haunting an enemy on the battlefield, stacks up to 4 times. And the only difference is 5%, and then 5%, and then it can stack up to 6 times. This is obviously, the debuffing part of his kit, or one of the debuffing parts of his kits. That's huge. And so obviously you want to build out the first section at least, but I would say it could be worth kind of getting up to that 20 mark. The 10 mark is nice, but obviously if you're wanting full debuff mode, maxing out his signature item will be important. Now, the only thing that's kind of a bummer with some of these releases is they don't have the divine effects shown yet. Now, they might just be the exact copy paste as what the classic version's effects were, but we don't really know yet because it could be a little bit different. We don't know the changes, percentages, stuff like that. And so we'll have to wait and see how that is. But that is all of Ferael's skills. He is kind of a really cool unit. I love like the mass haunting debuff kind of style. I know he was really big back in the day, and I think he will be really big once you start to build him out in Companions. I think you can't go wrong if you do decide to build him out. I will personally be adding him to my wish list as soon as he comes out, and I'm still debating whether or not I want to use my scrolls on him. I'm going to start stockpiling them and just kind of see where it takes me. Who knows? But that is all I got for him. Let's go ahead and take a look at him in the Arena of Trials. All right, so you can see him kind of go in action. He's haunting them with the sperm-like ghost. I don't know why they look like that, but that's just the design they went for. So they are being haunted. That is his ability, his ult, kind of coming down and blasting everyone. The ghost popping up behind him and scaring everyone is the terrorize ability. So you can see that he has some stuns, some kind of like AoE damage, some continuous damage with the sperm ghost. And you can see that he's just kind of doing a good amount of just like a lot of damage and a lot of effects on everyone. You know, you can see that terrorize is really brutal. And I think that can be really good, especially if some of the units on the other team are about to use their ultimates or getting close to that point. Being able to terrorize them before they can do it and you can kind of capitalize on it is huge. But you know, that's Ferael. I think he will be good in a lot of areas. Obviously, I think he'll be good in campaign, tower. I think in some dream realms he could be beneficial. Not all of them, but some of them. And then as well as Forked Fate. I think, you know, most units that you build out will be good in Forked Fate. There's some that are better, but I think I could see him doing well, especially with trying to stall the other team from doing their thing and getting their ultimates off. I think he could stall to save some of his units or his allies. And so I think he'll be pretty viable in a lot of areas and is definitely someone you should want to build out in the Graveborn faction. I'm excited to try him out. I think it'll be a while before I have him fully built. Kind of just the pace of the game at this point, but we will see. I'm excited. I'm a little bummed that he's released during the Destiny summons because there's already 3 units that are added to the game that we have to decide from. Now we have 4. And so it makes it a little complicated, but at least he will be in the normal game modes or availability wish list eventually. But I hope this was helpful for you guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you like below, subscribe if you want more content like this. Have any questions, comments, make sure you leave them below. And as always, hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.